Right, if you want to read content in the Times and the Sunday Times from June this year, you will have to pay for it. Let's speak now to the editor of the Times, that's James Harding, who's there in our central London studio. Bit of a risk strategy, James?
Good morning, Eamon. It is, but I think it's less of a risk than the one that we're currently taking. It's an extraordinary thing that we and all newspapers have been doing for a while now, which is saying to people, we really value the quality of our journalism, but online, we think it's worthless. We're just going to give it away for free. We don't think it's worthless. Over 2 million people who buy the Times and the Sunday Times every week don't think it's worthless. And so we think that what's really important is to make it possible for people to read the Times, the Sunday Times, and papers, and do that in a very simple way and charge them, I think, what's a really reasonable price. And so I think people will start paying to read quality journalism online.
Except, how do you reconcile that when you get so many newspapers becoming free sheets?
Well, I think it's a really interesting point, this, because if you look at what's happened to the newspaper market, you see actually a diversion, don't you? You see some people saying, well, I'll just pick up a free sheet. It's okay. It doesn't provide me really insightful journalism in the way in which the paid-for newspapers do, but it's good enough. And I think you are going to see some people say, yes, I'll get a bunch of free information online, even though it's not as good, it's not as informative, it's not as well-sourced. And I think there will be more and more people, though, who'll say, it's really important to me for my job, for the decisions that I make, whether they're about business or they're about sport or they're about the world we live in, to get the best possible information. And for that, I think people will come to our papers.
It's very interesting. You're giving us a bit of insight into human nature, and human nature being human nature. I think you're absolutely right. It's not really, actually, at the end of the day, it's not really about the quality that you're offering. I think if you charge people for something, they are actually more likely to appreciate it than if they get it for free.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's interesting, you know, 4 years ago, if we'd been having this conversation, Eamon, we would have said, look at what's happened to the music business. People will never pay for music again online. And then look at iTunes. Actually, our behaviour has changed because we realise there is a real value to that music, and I think there's a real value to our journalism and to journalism generally. And I guess I'd say one thing. You know, we as an industry have spent a lot of time talking about decline. This is the first time we're really able to start talking about growth again, and to say to our readers, look, we're going to offer you something that's not just the paper, but potentially a lot better. And I think people will respond to that.
Except, let me talk about one hurdle which may lie in the way, and that is the BBC. Right? You've got quality journalism there. The thing is, though, it provides its web content for free and probably is likely to do so for forevermore. Does that affect you as a commercial competitor?
Look, it clearly does. It clearly does. There are pressures not just from the BBC. I always like to remind people that they do actually pay for it. They pay something called the licence fee. But look, we are going to have to work in a very complicated marketplace. But we have a real relationship with our readers. People love the Times. They love the relationships they've got with our columnists. They put faith in people who, whether or not they tip the horses or whether or not they advise on business decisions, people have a relationship with the Times, and I think that they will choose to have that and pay for it.
Well, you're a bit of a guinea pig in all of this. I mean, it's the Times and the Sunday Times. If it works, probably then we'll be talking about the Sun and the News of the World and everything else in the News International stable.
I think so. Look, I think that we are at the point where newspapers generally are looking at making this change. We're taking the first step. You can see in the States that the New York Times is looking to do the same thing in next year. And I think newspapers of all kinds are going to have to look at ways that they can take the investment they make in journalism and make an economically sustainable business out of journalism. Because I'd say one thing, Eamon. It's extraordinary if you think about it, the investment that we make. We send people to Sri Lanka, to Haiti, to the Falklands. We make sure that we've got Mike Atherton covering the cricket or Frank Skinner covering the World Cup. You're selling it very well. You're selling it very well. What you need is an affable Irish columnist somewhere. That's what you need in all of that. Not very good, but cheap. It's digital journalism. It's a new field. You're going to have to pay for it. James Harding from The Times, thanks for explaining it to us this morning. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.